there are three things that I want to really make sure you understand and see in our context how you can jump on this bandwagon and join us together with other PTJ, with other school to do this micro-credential. So the first one, I'll be talking about reimagining credential. Second one is about micro-credential itself, or sometimes we use the term digital badges interchangeably. And the third one is stackable credential. There are at least three basic questions that we have to ponder in the context of how education is changing nowadays. The education landscape is changing very dynamically. So the first question that we have to ponder is, can learning be made flexible? In the current context, the system that we have now is actually not flexible at all. Okay? How do we recognize learning? How do we recognize learning? Nowadays in the digital world, if I go to YouTube and watch 3 minutes video, I can learn one specific skill by watching video. But where do I get people to recognize my skill that I have learned from this YouTube, just by watching this YouTube? Can we recognize that kind of learning nowadays? Even a small piece of learning. Okay? And what's the evidence of competency? In our system now, what is the evidence of competency? A degree? At the end of 4 years, is that enough evidence of competency? Or is there any other alternative in terms of providing evidence of competency? So these are the three things that we need to ponder. So the word micro-credential, or the term micro-credential now has become a buzzword. Two parts here. One is micro, the other one is credential. Okay? So I'll try to decipher the meaning of these two. But put together, it become the broader one is digital credential. A subset of digital credential is micro-credential. You can have other types of credential, not only micro-credential. Some people call it nano-credential. Some people call it by other names. But basically, it comes under a broad category called digital credential. So, why do we need to look at this thing nowadays? Why do we need to go into this area called micro-credential? Can we just continue doing what we have been doing for many years? What's the need? The reason, because education itself and the workforce is actually changing, and changing very fast. And behind this is actually the driving force is globalization, the technology, the massification of education. So there are many factors that drive this changing landscape of education and workforce. That's the reason why we need to change also. Okay? So when we look at what we are doing now, or what we have been doing for 50 years in USM especially, we are actually dealing with so-called formal education. In a formal environment, in the university, is a formal education. The students come through the main channel, which is the UPU, and then they enter the university, go through the 4 years program, or 3 years sometimes. At the end, what do they get? A formal qualification in the form of certificate, mainly maybe diploma and degree. That's what we are now. We are in a formal education setting. Okay? But we tend to forget there's another group, and this group is even bigger than the formal education group. The population that every time when we open the application for entry to the university, the number that get into the university is only a fraction, a small fraction of the total population of students applying to enter the university. There are at least 70% of those population of students applying to come to the university that fail to make it. This is what they end up, whether they go to the private university, those who can afford it, or they end up working. So those with SPM, STPM, or diploma even, they end up working. But they actually continue to learn. So the learning actually happens in the non-formal, what we call non-formal or informal environment or education. But as opposed to the formal education, which finally lead to formal qualification, we have another bigger group, maybe about 70% of this population that have no direct access to the formal education, but they go out and work. But at the same time, probably they continue to learn. They go and attend the course, maybe 1 day course, 2 days course, workshop, and so on. At the end, they will get a certificate. So they still get some form of qualification of some sort. But this is actually non-formal or informal, not in a formal environment. Now, when we look at these two groups, if we are doing business, which group that we would like to do business with? When we talk about volume, of course, the right hand side, the non-formal one, because these are the bigger population. So actually, these are the group that today I want to emphasize. We need to find ways how to tap and harness the potential of this group. And what we want to do now, can we form a bridge between the formal education and non-formal or informal education, so that those people are working, those people, the group on the right here, they can go through the learning process, taking courses and so on from the university, and along the way they will accumulate or collect a lot of certificate. But at one point, they can put together all these certificate and go to the university to get a degree. So that's how things are evolving now and in the future. And the future that I'm talking about here is not that far distant. It's very close now. So if you are not ready, you will be left behind. And this is very important to understand first. We are now dealing with the formal education, but we can continue doing this, and we will have, maybe next year hopefully, the accredited program, the existing one that we have as part of our degree program, can run as usual, but we can have another version of it in a micro-credential format, run concurrently, but targeting different groups.